masculine figure when they think of those characters. But one woman, Belle Starr, was dubbed the Queen of the Outlaws. TPR's David Martin Davies digs back into history to bring us her story.
Before she became a legendary outlaw, Belle Starr was Myra Mabel Shirley, born in 1848 near Carthage, Missouri. Her family was upper middle class with sympathies to the pro-slavery militias, and she was groomed to be a Southern belle.
And she herself was sent to the local girls' school to kind of, learn Latin and Greek and how to play the piano and French and art and these types of things.
Dane Huckelbridge is the author of the new book, Queen of All Mayhem, The Blood-Soaked Life and Mysterious Death of Belle Starr, the Most Dangerous Woman in the West. He says even as a young girl, Belle was fiercely independent and wanted to fight like her older brother, Bud Shirley.
During the Civil War, when her brother became a bushwhacker, joined the Confederate insurgency in Missouri, she helped him out. She was essentially was a teenage spy doing reconnaissance missions, feeding him information because she had more freedom of movement as a young woman.
Bud was killed by Union troops in 1846. Devastated by his death and the destruction of their property during the Civil War, the family relocated to Syene, Texas, a small settlement southeast of Dallas, and that's where she began her life that rejected gender conventions.
The sort of independence and freedom and self-determination that she wanted, if she followed the law-abiding route, it just wasn't possible. And being an outlaw, she had the freedom to kind of do whatever she wanted. She could love whoever she wanted. She could take whatever she wanted. She could live wherever she wanted.
Huckelbridge says Starr was a horse thief and fenced stolen horses. She also used her ranch in the Cherokee Nation as a hideout for other notorious bandits for a fee.
Where she would offer the outlaws, including outlaws like Jesse James, the chance to come and hide out on her ranch and escape from federal authorities. So she made money from that.
Huckelbridge says Starr wasn't just a sidekick dabbling in breaking the law,
but actually leading a gang of men who were more or less subservient to her. And she certainly was the leader of this organized crime racket.
There are stories that Starr took part in robberies, but that's unproven.
But I'm convinced she did. There's one famous armed robbery that she was charged with. She ended up beating the rap and getting off. A witness, a girl who testified, pointed to Belle Starr and essentially said, "This woman robbed us dressed as a man."
In public, Starr enjoyed playing the part of the flamboyant criminal. She would dress in black velvet and wore a large cowboy hat affixed with a massive ostrich feather.
And it was a get-up. She saw herself as this lavish gangster dressing in fine clothes to be feared and respected.
Huckelbridge says the violence of the Wild West was a major part of Starr's life. All 4 of her husbands were killed in gun battles, and she too died violently.
It was definitely an execution. She was riding her horse alone, and somebody shot her in the back with a barrel of buckshot.
Starr was knocked off her horse, and her attacker shot her again at point-blank range. The identity of that attacker remains a mystery. It's one of the great unsolved murders of the Wild West. The story of Starr's death was printed in the New York Times, giving rise to the story of the Queen of the Wild West Outlaws. I'm David Martin Davies in San Antonio.
In just over 2 weeks, Texas Standard will be in Abilene for the Children's Art and Literacy Festival. And we're planning a program that will be interesting for adults, but made for our listeners in the back seats of the car. Are you a kid who listens to the Texas Standard, or do you know one? We'd love to hear from you. What questions do you have about Texas, about politics, about technology, about anything we can help you sort through? You can reach out via our Contact Us page, and you can learn more about our shows on the road celebrating our 10th birthday at texasstandard.org/birthday. You can also leave us a birthday message, like this one.
Hello, my name is Zyla Rendon, and I'm from Austin, Texas, and I want to wish the Texas Standard a happy 10th birthday.
Send us some 10th birthday love and find out if we're coming to your neck of Texas at texasstandard.org/birthday.
Hey, what's cooking? Make sure to join us as we check in with Texas's top taco journalists to hear about the latest innovation stories and the people behind many a Texan's favorite go-to. It's Mondo Rayo with the Tacos of Texas, Thursday on the Texas Standard.
Support for Tacos of Texas comes from HEB. Support for Texas Standard comes from UNT, offering an online MBA with specializations in business analytics, HR management, and more. Classes start every 8 weeks. Details at online.unt.edu/MBA.
It's 10:49. This is News 88.7. Hello, Houston. Coming up at 11. Let's check in with Ernie Manous and see what's on the show today. Hey, Ernie.
Hello, Houston's coming up at 11?
I'm sorry. Yes, it is.
Then I guess
We can start it right now if you want.
I'm going to have to wake up from this dreary weather nap I'm taking, get ready for the show. Frank will be here to tell us when this dreary weather will leave us. But also on the show today, we are going to celebrate AAPI Month and the Asian American community in Houston. We'll also take a deeper dive into gender and sexuality. Also, did you know that Houston has its own wine vineyard? We'll explain that and tell you more about it on the show today, and we want you to join the conversation. 713-440-8870. You can call us or text us. Also, you can email us, talk@hellohouston.org. And if you want to look at something brighter than what's out your window, watch us on YouTube. Just look for the Houston Public Media channel. See you at 11.
This is the Texas Standard. I'm Laura Rice. As President Trump has scaled up the use of the military at the southern border, the Army has deployed a growing amount of equipment that's usually used for war. That includes surveillance systems and armored Stryker combat vehicles, and it's led to questions about whether those tools are the right ones for the job. Carlos Morales of the American Homefront Project reports from Presidio, Texas.
The Big Bend area of Texas is a vast expanse of desert shrub, imposing mountains and wide open spaces. Along the border here, Army First Sergeant Ruben Gaeta overlooks a narrow strip of the Rio Grande.
A little bit down the river, they call it the fishing spot. It's one of the hot spots traditionally.
The fishing spot, Gaeta says, is where Border Patrol agents watch for people attempting to cross the border. Just behind him, a Stryker scans the horizon. The roar of the armored combat vehicle filling what's typically a quiet scene along the border here. The nearly 20-ton vehicle has been used in Iraq and Afghanistan. They sit on 8 wheels, can carry 11 soldiers, and reach speeds up to 60 miles per hour. The ones dispatched to the border are equipped with a high-powered camera system.
It's got really good capabilities to zoom in really far.
Gaeta points to a building a few miles off into the distance on the Mexican side of the border.
Like in that compound, we can see, like as close as me and you are right now, you can see the person and what they look like.
The Army says roughly 100 Strykers are spread across the border, playing a critical role in its effort to assist Border Patrol agents. The Trump administration has designated roughly 230 miles of the border as a military zone, where Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says troops now have more authority.
You see guys in camouflage now with binoculars or in Stryker vehicles with rifles. They have the authority to detain illegals temporarily and assist Border Patrol and hand them over.
But that goal doesn't require such a large, heavily armored deployment, says Jennifer Kavanaugh. She's the director of military analysis at Defense Priorities, a D.C. think tank. And while Kavanaugh says she's not against using the military to protect the country's borders, in this instance, the threat just isn't there.
It's not clear, objectively, that the number of people trying to cross the border right now exceeds the capacity of the law enforcement presence in the border states. And the Stryker vehicles aren't armed. So it is about appearance. It's not about necessarily deploying their capabilities.
In April, General Gregory Guillot, the head of U.S. Northern Command, spoke to a House committee about the deployment, which comes at a time when the number of people apprehended at the U.S.-Mexico border is low. It's a number that's been trending down for the last year and a half.
The initial results of sealing the border have been fantastic if you look at the stats, but we need to make sure that that's lasting and goes through all of the cycles of illegal migration that we see, seasonal, and I think that will take probably a couple of years.
And that gives Kavanaugh pause. She wonders what a years-long deployment to the border means for the country's ability to respond to crises elsewhere.
In my view, it makes a lot more sense to protect and preserve military resources so that if a crisis did occur, a real crisis that affected U.S. interests, we would have the vehicles and the personnel to respond in the optimal way.
The Trump administration plans to expand its use of the military. Recently, the Department of Homeland Security asked for 20,000 National Guard troops to help with deportations. Pentagon says the border mission has cost $525 million so far. I'm Carlos Morales in Presidio, Texas.
This story was produced by the American Homefront Project, a public media collaboration that reports on American military life and veterans. And you're listening to the Texas Standard.
Wells Dunbar here with the Talk of Texas. And you know, this hour we've been talking a lot about the Texas legislature coming to a close very soon, less than a week away, Tuesday, June 2nd, being the day the ledge is prescribed to adjourn sine die. And I was talking about this session at the 89th legislature in today's newsletter, and specifically how we want to hear from Texas Standard listeners how they rate the legislature and their lawmakers this session, their priorities, and how they have delivered or not delivered on those priorities. And so we're looking to hear from folks literally. We would love our friends and listeners to go to texasstandard.org/talk, where you can upload your own thoughts directly to us, or we've even got, a phone number if that's your thing. I love a little old school analog technology. So again, that is at texasstandard.org/talk, or you can leave us a voice memo. That's right, at 1-512-710-8951. That's 512-710-8951. We really want to hear from you. We think that would be great.
I love that Wells getting more voices of Texans on the air. It's the kind of thing where a lot of people have sort of had different feelings about social media, and so we want to encourage people to find lots of different ways to engage with us. So nowadays we've got not just an email address, but a phone number. We've got social media as well, and Wells Dunbar wants to hear from you. And the specific topics or anything on folks' minds. How's this working?
Yeah. Well, we're talking here about the legislature, obviously, because there is so much to talk about here in the final days of the ledge. One thing I've been seeing a lot of reaction to this, an anti-trans bill on its way to the governor's desk. This per action from the Texas Senate, who just voted, I believe, late last night or early this morning, technically, however you look at that, to pass House Bill 229. That enforces strict definitions of gender, requiring that a person's sex be defined by the sex listed on an individual's birth certificate. So lots of folks upset about this one, including the advocates at Equality Texas. They write that this bill ignores the reality of over 100,000 trans people living in the state, and 1.7% of the population that is intersex. And they say that this bill may forcibly out trans and intersex people, potentially placing them in harm's way at a time when violence against trans people is on the rise. So many people watching that passage on its way to the governor's desk, where it is most likely to be signed into law. Interesting enough as well, the bills that aren't going to be making law, that aren't going to pass, it looks like. It looks like Senate Bill 2000, or let's just spell it out, Senate Bill 2880. This one would have prescribed limits on mailing abortion medication into Texas. That bill apparently dead in the water, it looks like, with such a little time left. Similarly, Senate Bill 16. This was a Texas Republican bill that would require voters to prove their citizenship. Apparently, it is not in the offing either after it stalled out in the House. So, not looking likely. A last-minute bill. This would be a Senate joint resolution, and this would place something on before voters for a constitutional amendment. Senate Joint Resolution 87. That is a proposed constitutional amendment that would prohibit bail in certain instances, violent instances and the like. So lots of push behind this one, but at the last minute, anyone's guess as to whether or not that'll get over the finish line.
Wells Dunbar is interested in hearing from you and what you are seeing in the Texas legislature. He's got all the ways you can contact us. Again, that's texasstandard.org/talk of Texas. Thank you so much for listening. See you back here tomorrow.
Hi, I'm Chris Boyd, host of Think. Think is a show for curious minds. Whether we're discussing history, science, politics, or the arts, my hope is that every conversation inspires curiosity and complexity, and that every listener walks away with their own questions, inspiration, and others. Tune in and join me as we learn something new and take a moment to think.
Weekdays at 10 p.m. on News 88.7.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Houston Grand Opera, opening the 25-26 season with Porgy and Bess, featuring music by George Gershwin, blending jazz, blues, and spirituals. Tickets available now at hgo.org.
We have a flood advisory in effect for another hour or so, and thunderstorms likely, the high getting up to near 88 today. Right now it's 74. This is your NPR station, KUHF, Houston News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston.
Welcome to Hello Houston. Coming up this hour, we dive into today's top stories, including the latest in President Trump's feud with Harvard, as the university has not complied with the administration's demand over providing data on its international students. I'm Ernie Manous.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. We'll also talk with Paul Gore, the co-director of the Asian Chamber of Commerce, who discusses the cultural and economic impact of the Asian community right here in Houston.
And I'm Frank Billingsley. Plus, we'll also learn more about the nationally recognized contemporary art fair, Untitled Art, and their inaugural Houston edition later this fall.
And as Ernie, Frank, and I discuss the top headlines of the day, we want your thoughts, your questions, and concerns. Give us a call or shoot us a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The Trump administration suspending visa interviews for international students attempting to study in the United States. A U.S. official who spoke on condition of anonymity says the State Department plans to expand its review of applicants' social media activity. So far this year, the administration's undertaken widely controversial actions targeting student protests against the Gaza war and illegal immigration. They've prompted a number of international students who currently hold visas to reconsider whether it's safe to travel out of the U.S. or even out of state. President Trump has announced full pardons for reality TV stars Todd and Julie Chrisley.
He's the patriarch of perfection.
We're not perfect. But perfect should be something you should strive to be.
NPR's Rachel Treisman reports the couple had been serving prison sentences for tax evasion and bank fraud.
Todd and Julie Chrisley rose to fame with the show Chrisley Knows Best, which documented the family's lavish Southern lifestyle. It was canceled after they were convicted of defrauding community banks to get more than $36 million in personal loans, spending it on luxury goods, and avoiding taxes for several years. The Chrisleys have been in prison since 2023. Their daughter, Savannah, who spoke at the 2024 Republican National Convention, says they were unfairly targeted because of their conservative beliefs. Trump called her this week to notify her of their pardon. Rachel Treisman, NPR News.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is in Berlin for talks with the Chancellor Friedrich Merz to discuss efforts to help bring an end to the Russian war. Esme Nicholson reports Ukraine is looking for increased support as Russia's bombing campaign intensifies.
Speaking to journalists after a one-on-one meeting with his Ukrainian counterpart, Friedrich Merz said Germany and Ukraine have agreed to start the joint production of long-range missiles. Merz said cooperation on an industrial level will take place both in Ukraine and in Germany. The German leader raised hopes earlier this week that he would green-light the delivery of Taurus missiles to Ukraine, but stressed in the press conference with Zelensky that such decisions will not be discussed in public. Merz did promise to continue and expand Germany's military support for Ukraine. For NPR News, I'm Esme Nicholson in Berlin.
In Gaza, a crowd was fired upon as they rushed to a humanitarian aid distribution point run by a U.S.-backed group. The Associated Press quotes Gaza's health ministry in reporting at least one Palestinian died and 48 other people were wounded. This development underscores the fragility of the process of trying to feed people confronting a hunger crisis in the wake of Israel's ongoing military operations targeting Hamas in Gaza. From Washington, this is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Gabrielle Dawkins. President Trump's big, beautiful bill is over 2,000 pages in length. News 88.7's Tom Perumian clues us in on some of what's in it.
Rice University political scientist Bob Stein, who has read and digested the bill in its entirety, has some blunt talk on its fiscal responsibility.
It doesn't cut the deficit. It actually increases it. You can debate the point about how much it increases it, but we're talking about not billions, but trillions of dollars over the next decade. What that means is that around July, maybe even late August, the Congress is going to have to, and the president sign, a debt ceiling increase.
As for the bill preserving tax cuts, which many deride as benefiting the rich, Stein puts that to rest by saying across-the-board tax cuts always benefit the wealthy for one reason: they have more money. I'm Tom Perumian, News 88.7.
And Bob Stein appeared on Hello Houston Tuesday. Houston City Council will consider ramping up enforcement at problematic apartment complexes. Council member Letitia Plummer is pushing for the change, which will implement mandatory inspections at complexes with 10 or more habitability violations.
This is about shifting from a reactive stance to one of preventive care to our communities.
The proposal received favorable recommendation from a council committee Tuesday and will go on the main agenda next month. A Houston area FBI analyst was arrested in Northwest Harris County on charges of possessing child pornography. Brian Roush is now in custody following an investigation. He was charged after multiple videos of child sexual assault were found on his phone, according to authorities. He's booked in the Harris County Jail right now. And try your best to stay dry. Stormy weather is in the forecast for today. It's 74 degrees, and a flood advisory is in effect for Brazoria, Fort Bend, Galveston, and Harris County. I'm Gabrielle Dawkins, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance. Progressive is looking for dedicated and forward-thinking individuals to join their growing team. More information, including application, at progressive.com/careers.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870. Or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
And hello, Houston.
Hello, Houston.
We are back with you again today on a very dreary Wednesday. Frank Billingsley.
Why are we all black? Watching us on YouTube, you can see that, right?
Yeah, you can see us on the YouTube channel. But I think it's funny. I see the dreary weather, and for some reason, I blame Frank. Like, you control the weather from your laptop, not just report it.
I do.
Oh, you do? Well, then why are you doing this to us? How much longer is it going to last?
You're not an azalea bush, you know? If you were, you'd feel differently. Hey, there is a flood advisory.
Thank you for noticing.
There are flood advisories for like northern Galveston County all the way down to the Causeway, basically League City down to Galveston. Just they've had a couple of inches of rain. That's all it takes to cause problems. About 2 inches in Common, Sugarland, Friendswood, up around the Cotton Road, the Woodlands, out toward Hawkeye. Elsewhere, 1 to 2 inches has been common. The good news is not a lot of severe weather with this, and it looks like it'll get out of here by 6, if not sooner. We have another round maybe tomorrow.
So much for the good news.
Well, I mean, if you look at the global models, they have more coming through. The micro models, like that I like, they're not that bullish on it. The good news is, by the time we get to the weekend, we dry out.
Oh, good.
So if you have weekend plans, and don't we all, you're in good shape.
A dry out, are you talking humid, though?
Am I talking to what?
Humid on the weekend?
Of course.
It's Houston.
And July 1st,
It's
June 1st,
June 1st.
is Sunday, right?
That's right. This morning, my kids were chatting, and I was like, they were kind of having just a moment. The weather throws everybody off. And I said, guys, everybody relax. It is just a regular Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Except for the fact it's Wednesday for those of you in
Yeah.
school.
Hump Day Tuesday?
And Evelyn looked at me, she's like, Mom, it's Wednesday.
It's Wednesday, Mom.
I said, right. It's a regular Wednesday.
Wind down Wednesday.
Yes.
We were chatting a little bit about that before the show. It's like when your children hit that age where their personalities not just come out, but now they're expressing themselves and thinking and correcting.
And correcting me.
You know, they get to that point. Philip is still, yay, Mommy.
Yes. Yeah.
It's
my
coming.
my son was in 5th grade, which is what, 10 years old?
Yep.
11 years old?
Yep.
And he had to have Stumper's hair. Had to I said, Morgan, that's a lot of goop in your hair.
Gel.
You know what he said? Dad, you have control issues.
Don't we all, Morgan? Don't we all?
Issues. I'm going to take control of this right now. We've got a full show today. In a little bit, we're going to be taking a closer look at the Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month here in Houston and that thriving community. And we'll talk and learn more about them and what's going on to celebrate this month, even though we're toward the end of the month. Celeste, though, is going to start us off with our first topic of the day.
Yep. The White House General Services Administration is expected to send a letter to federal agencies on Tuesday yesterday, asking them to identify any contracts with Harvard and whether they can be canceled or redirected elsewhere. This is coming from a senior administration official told ABC News. The move comes as President Donald Trump continues to attack on the school, as the university has not complied with the administration's demands over providing data on its international students. It comes after the president announced over the weekend that he is considering allocating $3 billion away from Harvard to other trade schools, the latest in his battle with the Ivy League university. We want to hear from you. What are your thoughts about the latest in the Trump versus Harvard feud? Give us a call or shoot us a text, 713-440-8870.
Well, to say other trade schools, Harvard is not a trade school.
Yeah.
The money, this kind of $3 billion money goes to cancer research, other medical research. Trade schools are great. They're great. And they teach trades, which we all need. And you can make a great living at going to a trade school. But it's not the same thing.
Well, but I think you're talking about like an equal swap. It's like, oh, we're not going to put it there, we're going to put it here. When we know it's to punish Harvard, to take their funding.
Clearly.
It is not because he suddenly woke up and thought trade schools needed more funding. Where are we going to get it?
Well,
Harvard has plenty.
And a third of Harvard students are from out of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a huge amount, and it's a huge undertaking. And giving all these records, the way that we have seen this administration go at it with not a scalpel, but a chainsaw, everything, whether it's deportations, rounding people up, cutting budgets, getting rid of USAID, whatever they're doing, it's just sort of instant. Yeah. So you give them a third of your student records. Are they going to go through every single record and decide whatever they're trying to decide? Or are they just going to say, you're all gone?
Right. And looking at this from a non-political standpoint, you have to ask yourselves, why does the federal government want international data from a university?
Yeah, I mean, as part of the argument is the fact that they feel like it's not abiding by what the Trump administration wants from student bodies and the way that they express themselves on campus, and that they have had too many protests that don't fall in line with what the current administration. I'm trying to be so clean on this line.
Boston is a protest city.
Right.
The vegetarians protest meat at steakhouses, and people who don't like a certain movie protest at the movie. If they don't, they
had a tea party that started it
exactly, and they do it. If you've been to Boston, you know they're all protesting, but they're all sitting there on the T reading F. Scott Fitzgerald. I mean, they're a very bright group of people up there.
Right.
And
there was a good point.
Things to them.
A good point you brought up too is that when we look at this and we think, all right, cutting the funding in a sense of retribution or punishment, and because of these, but that funding does go to all this research and what happened. It's not just scholarships for students as they kind of play it out. That the fabric of this country is built on the research and the science and the learning and the study that happens in institutions like this.
And I'll go to the crew.
It makes me think about what Rice University Professor Bob Stein was saying yesterday when we were examining the big, beautiful bill. And something that really struck me was when we're looking at programs like this, and we were specifically talking about Medicaid, but now we're looking at, funding $3 billion that goes to Harvard University. There are beneficiaries and people that benefit from it. Mm-hmm. And the beneficiaries here are the doctors, the researchers, the professors, the students that are putting their effort into bettering the Americans and taking research to the next level.
Look at this text.
What's that?
He's just jealous of the top university in America because his fraudulent university was forced to shut down. He isn't going after any university that he attended.
No.
Like Wharton Business School.
Well, the other interesting thing is there's a story that's floating around on the internet, which the Trump administration and family says is false, is that Barron Trump applied to Harvard and didn't get in. And so this is retribution.
I don't know Barron that well, but I bet if he applied, he would get in. He seems like a very bright guy. Yeah. From what I've seen, he's very mature.
All right. What do you think about what's going on in the Trump versus Harvard feud? Give us a call at 713-440-8870. Does that actually benefit our higher education in this country? Is it wise to take money from a university like Harvard and funnel it to other schools? Is there a logic behind how they're doing it or why they're doing it? Or is it just retribution? Let us know what you think. 713-440-8870. Texas Tribune is reporting a proposal to limit how much an accident victim can recover in lawsuits for Medicare or medical care won preliminary approval from the Texas House on Monday, but not without changes that leave open monetary awards beyond medical bills and preserving the court's ability to decide what evidence is relevant. Senate Bill 30 intends to curb what's called nuclear verdicts, or judge rulings that would award victims more than $10 million, which proponents say make doing business in Texas is unpredictable. If this proposed bill becomes law, those who sue in personal injury or wrongful death cases can submit only the amount paid for medical services. What do you think? Are you in favor of regulating lawsuits in Texas? Give us a call, 713-440-8870. You can also text us at the same number, 713-440-8870. Folks, thoughts on this one?
Regulating lawsuits, just that in general is interesting to me.
Well, I've always bristled a little bit because Greg Abbott has received almost $10 million from his accident when the tree in 1984 fell on him and made him a paraplegic. And not to say he doesn't deserve it, but he's been sort of instrumental in these kind of laws that don't let anybody else have that opportunity. And I've often wondered why. And now he says, if I could walk, I would give every penny back. And I believe that. I believe him when he says that. And it's horrible that happened, But it just seems that you're a little two-faced when you took all the money that you could take under the current law, but then you are governor and work toward laws that don't allow other people the same opportunity.
That start to restrict the law.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure there are frivolous lawsuits and people,
we heard about the Whataburger one. Or the guy with the onions.
Well, right, yeah. I'm going to sue for $1 million because you put onions on my Whataburger.
And last month he was suing Sonic.
Right, and maybe in 1984 it was much different, where there was more respect for the law and people were given what they deserved with guidelines in place. And now it's a wild frontier, and you just get as much money as you can, and maybe that's why we need
What bothers me in here is the phrasing that a person who sues in personal injury or wrongful death cases can submit only the amount paid for medical services. In wrongful death or personal injury, it reaches far beyond just the cost of medical services, how it can change or in some ways ends your life. What is the value of that? Taking that away, if I'm reading this correctly, is like you can only get paid for your medical costs. That doesn't seem right.
Because pain and suffering matters a lot.
Yes.
And then PTSD and emotional trauma afterward. You could go through an accident that now you don't sleep, you
And there's also a definition of medical costs. So, for example, would your psychiatrist, your therapist, would that fall under medical cost if you had to seek out professional and mental health help?
Okay, so this is a very trivial story, but I remember driving my car, getting hit. My car got totaled, and they were only going to offer me so much money. It wasn't enough to get me back to where I was, which was driving this car that worked. It was giving me the value of the car, according to Blue Book, and it was an old car, but it worked. And I didn't have to put out any more money. I was driving along. It wasn't my fault. At the end of the day, I only got a handful of money, which was not enough to make me whole again. That's where I have a problem with these kind of laws. It's about more than just what the value is. It's what it means in your life. I should have been able to been back in a car of comparable value moving along on that road again with no impact on me because it wasn't my fault.
Saying that, I'm against all these nuclear verdicts that happen. $650 million for this and that.
The coffee spill from
McDonald's.
Yeah, even if you go to a divorce, the judge will look at an actuarial table and say, well, you're 70 and you're 50, and so you're going to live 15 more years, and you're going to live 25 more years, and 35 more years, and so this is how we're going to divide it up. So maybe there need to be guidelines saying, look, life is valuable, but in this situation, a finger is worth $1,000, an arm is worth $10,000, a head is worth $1 million.
What about the piano player?
You don't have guidelines. You have nuclear verdicts.
Because I think my pointer finger is worth more than my finger.
That's right. Well, good lawyers and emotional juries can lead to problems. Okay, we're moving on.
We are Wednesday-ing.
713-440-8870. Are you in favor of regulating lawsuits in Texas? Let us know what you think.
Okay, starting today, guess what? Southwest. One of my favorite airlines. I only have two favorites, United and Southwest.
Your whole office is decorated.
I have Southwest, actual Southwest seats in my office. I got them at a
Are you going to be charging new fees to go into your office?
Yes, I have cocktails to serve. But they're going to start imposing a checked bag fee for new and updated bookings, introduce a basic fare type that doesn't allow changes or same-day standby or transfer flight credits. So the Wall Street Journal reports that one checked bag will be $35, a second will be $45. Flight credits issued today or later will expire in 6 months. It used to be that they would be forever, never expire. But now they're going to expire. So they're rolling back that, and they're going to switch to assigned seats next year. Reservations for those flights will start later this year. Okay, well, I'm for all of this, except you know what? Here's what's going to happen. Kevin and I are going to see you and your family, and we are already going to have picked our seats. And we're all going to sit down close to each other, and Ernie's going to show up. And he's going to want to sit with us. And we're going to say to this person who has an assigned seat, well, you mind switching with Ernie back there because we'd like to sit with him. And this happens all the time.
They always are inviting me to sit with them.
No, this happens a lot of times where people ask other people to switch their seats to sit with family. Somehow they got separated. They saw friends in the airport that they want to sit with.
Yeah.
And you can kind of do that with Southwest now. You can kind of hold a seat and say, oh, we have a friend coming to sit with us. That's still gonna happen despite assigned seats, and it's going to cause problems.
I don't know. I think that I got to be honest with you. As somebody we both were just recently flying, and I flew United last time to McAllen, and this time I think we were at Southwest, and it was one of those things where we paid to be in the A group, so we could just be in the front, sit down. We were there. I don't think it's going to cause problems. I actually think it'll be better. I don't know.
I'm all for the reserved seats. I do not like that mad dash rush. Who's here? Get in there, stand in line. I'm always standing in line before they've told me I can stand in line, and I don't like that.
You're
but
one
I
of
don't
those,
want to not
Ernie.
have my seat. Yes, I'm one of those. So I'm okay with that. I am kind of tired of this whole baggage fee thing. I mean,
the baggage fee.
We're traveling. You're flying us somewhere. Of course we're bringing baggage. Now, because I have a credit card that then ties in with an airline, I can have a bag or two. I don't even know what the rules are anymore. But I get that courtesy. But I think this is getting ridiculous. It's like, okay, in Europe, you fly cheap but you pay for every step of the way of it. And you have to have a little tiny bag, and my suitcase with the wheels sticking out is within the measurement size, so it can go in the overhead. Those things, it is what it is. I don't know. I think it's going to be fine. People want a discount. You can pay into what you want, but the baggage fee is enough already.
See, my problem is I always think I'm somehow getting pushed back. Like if I'm in group boarding B and I'm number 12 and I'm in the little area, I always think the people in front of me are clearly 14, 15, 16.
Right.
Well,
and I should be in front of them.
Probably am.
Well, when we were coming back on Southwest the other day, we were at A 35 and 36, right? And so we're making sure we're where we're supposed to be. And I said to one woman, "What are you?" She said, "Oh, 11." And I said, "Well, you should be over there in 11." Turned out she was in C11.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
So what do you think? Will these changes help or hurt Southwest? Give us a call, 713-440-8870.
And don't be a cheater.
Oh, quick, I do have to say today's National Hamburger Day. You know where I'm going.
Alex Garza put right here in our YouTube comments, Happy National Hamburger Day. One of my faves is Stanton City Bites.
All the pickles, all the lettuce, special orders, don't upset us. Go ahead.
I have a special order for you. Celeste, wrap us up.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll talk with Director of Community Development for Asian Chamber of Commerce, Houston Paul Gore, about Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month and more. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
Your right to know what's really going on in our world depends on more than just great journalism. It depends on your participation.
Houston Public Media is funded by Houstonians for Houstonians. 80% of our budget comes directly from you, our community.
That's how trusted information stays free and accessible. No ads, no shareholders, just clear and careful reporting.
Protect your right to stay informed by visiting houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
Imagine two friends getting together.
So what's happening in Congress? Well, this is something that is going to be tough to defend in an election year. And that's assuming it even passes, which it might not.
Imagine you could listen in.
And then what about the Senate? The bills are just rocketing out of the chamber. Have they gone too far? The House might say, well, wait a minute.
Well, you can. Party Politics with Brandon Rottinghouse and Geronimo Cortina. Fridays at 7:30 p.m. on News 88.7, at 8 on TV8, and on your favorite podcast platforms.
Hi, I'm Craig Cohen, the host of Houston Matters. Join me weekday mornings at 9 or at your leisure on your podcast feed for your daily guide to the people, places, issues, and ideas that define Greater Houston. From politics to the economy, energy to the environment, healthcare to education to transportation and beyond. If it matters to Houston, it matters to us. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts or live on the air weekdays at 9 a.m. right here on News 88.7.
Houston Public Media brings to you PBS World. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on TV 8.6. Experience the personal connection behind the headlines with programming devoted to telling stories that humanize complex issues. PBS World helps us understand the movements, conflicts, and cultures that connect us all. PBS World on TV 8.6 and online at houstonpublicmedia.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. Call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org to get your comment in on today's topics. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Harris County's Asian population grew 40% from 2010 to 2020. That's according to U.S. Census data. Also, according to the census, about 8% of the population in Harris County identifies as Asian. Houston is one of the most diverse cities in the country, and we wanted to celebrate that diversity right here on Hello Houston for Asian American and Pacific Islander Month.